Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the Liberty's Dawn and watched the massive council station grow larger on the main screen. The metal structure was huge, bigger than Earth's moon, and it spun slowly in the darkness of space. Lights from thousands of windows made it look like a giant diamond against the black void. Jake had been to the council station many times before, but today felt different. The message they received 3 days ago was short and cold. Humanity will appear before the full council for final judgment. No explanation, no details, just those 9 words that made Jake's stomach twist with worry. "Sir, we're getting a signal from the station," said Lieutenant Amy Watson from her position at the communication console. She was young, maybe 25, with bright eyes that usually sparkled with curiosity. Today those eyes looked worried. "Put it through," Jake replied, smoothing down his blue uniform jacket. He had worn his best dress uniform for this meeting, though he was starting to think it might not matter. The main screen flickered and showed the face of a Zephyrian controller. The alien's pale blue skin seemed to glow under the station's lights, and its large black eyes stared directly at Jake. When it spoke, its voice came through the ship's speakers like a whisper mixed with wind. "Human vessel Liberty's Dawn, you are cleared for docking Bay 7. Proceed immediately. Do not deviate from the assigned path." The screen went black before Jake could respond. He looked at his crew and saw the same confusion on their faces that he felt in his chest. "Well, that was friendly," muttered Chief Engineer Ben Clark from the back of the bridge. Ben was an older man with gray hair and hands that were always dirty from working on engines. He had been Jake's friend for 15 years, and Jake could hear the sarcasm in his voice. "Stay calm, everyone," Jake said. "We don't know what this is about yet." But deep down, Jake had a bad feeling. For the past year, there had been rumors floating around the human colonies. Some people said the council was getting nervous about how fast humanity was growing and learning. Others whispered that the alien races were jealous of human achievements. Jake had always thought those were just stories people told when they had too much to drink. The Liberty's Dawn docked at the station without any problems. Jake straightened his jacket one more time and headed for the airlock. Amy Watson and Ben Clark followed behind him, their footsteps echoing in the metal corridor. The council chamber was enormous. The ceiling disappeared into shadows high above, and the walls curved away on both sides like they were inside a giant ball. 5 massive chairs sat in a circle around a small platform in the center. Each chair was built for a different alien race, and each one made Jake feel very small. Admiral Lisa Carter was already waiting on the platform. She was a tall woman with short gray hair and the kind of face that never showed fear, even when she probably felt it. Lisa had been speaking for humanity at the council for 10 years. If anyone could handle whatever was coming, it was her. The 5 council members entered the chamber together. Jake recognized each of them from the history books he had studied at the academy. High Counselor Vexithera of the Zephyrians glided to her chair without making a sound. Her people could read minds, and Jake tried very hard not to think about anything important. Next to her sat war leader Korthak of the Corvan Empire. He was huge, maybe 8 feet tall, with 4 arms and skin that looked like it could stop bullets. His species had been fighting wars for thousands of years. Trademaster Quillix of the Benthari Consortium moved to his chair with quick, bird-like steps. The Benthari looked like walking stick insects and controlled most of the galaxy's money and business. Science Director Jal of the Valdris Collective floated to her position in a bubble of blue energy. The Valdris had been studying the universe since before humans learned to make fire. Last came Speaker Nith of the Nethys, and Jake shivered when he looked at the creature. Nobody really understood what the Nethys were. They looked like shadows, with too many eyes, and they never explained anything they did. High Counselor Vexthera spoke first, her mental voice appearing inside everyone's head instead of coming through their ears. Humanity stands accused of crimes against galactic peace and stability. You have violated 17 separate treaties. You have developed weapons technology that was forbidden to your species. You have expanded your territory beyond the limits we set for you. Most importantly, you have become a threat to the natural order of this galaxy. Admiral Carter stepped forward. High Counselor, humanity has followed every law and rule given to us. We have never attacked another species. We have only defended ourselves when others attacked us first. What crimes are you talking about? War leader Korthak slammed one of his 4 fists on the arm of his chair. You build ships faster than any race in history. You learn our technologies and make them better. You send your people to every corner of the galaxy. This is not natural. Learning and growing is what humans do, Lisa replied, her voice steady and strong. We cannot change who we are. Trademaster Quillix clicked his mandibles together in what Jake knew was a sign of anger. Your species disrupts established trade routes. You make new technologies that put our businesses out of work. You do not understand your place in the galactic economy. Science Director Jal's voice came from her energy bubble like an echo. In 200 years, your species has advanced as much as most races do in 2,000 years. This rate of progress is dangerous. It upsets the balance we have maintained for millennia. Speaker Nith said nothing, but Jake felt like 1,000 eyes were watching him from the shadows around the creature. Admiral Carter looked at each council member in turn. So our crime is being successful? Our crime is learning and growing and trying to make life better for our people? Your crime, said High Counselor Vexithera, is existing in a way that threatens the stability of galactic civilization. We have voted. The decision is final. Jake felt his heart sink. He looked at Admiral Carter and saw her hands clench into fists. Humanity has 30 standard days to withdraw from all Council space. You will surrender all advanced technology obtained through Council membership. Any human vessel found beyond the designated exile zone after this period will be destroyed. Immediately. The words hit Jake like a punch to the stomach. Exile. They were throwing humanity out of galactic civilization entirely. Admiral Carter's voice was quiet but clear. There are 12 million humans living on worlds in Council space. Families, children, people who have never known any other home. They have 30 days to leave, War Leader Korthak growled. After that, they are considered invaders. Jake watched Admiral Carter stand straighter, her shoulders back and her chin up. When she spoke, her words were calm, but filled with something that made Jake's skin prickle. You are making a mistake. Humanity has been a good member of this council. We have helped other species. We have shared our knowledge. We have fought beside you against common enemies. And now you throw us away because you are afraid of what we might become. High Counselor Vexithara's mental voice was cold. We are not afraid. We are practical. Your species is unpredictable. You cannot be controlled or contained. For the good of the galaxy, you must be removed. Admiral Carter nodded slowly. Very well, but remember this day, all of you. Remember that you had a choice and you chose fear over friendship. You chose to make enemies instead of allies. She turned and walked toward the exit. Jake and his crew followed her, their footsteps echoing in the huge chamber. As they reached the doorway, Admiral Carter stopped and looked back at the 5 council members. Humanity will remember this. We will remember every face in this room. We will remember every word you spoke. And someday, when you need us most, we will remember how you treated us today. The doors closed behind them with a sound like thunder. 50 years had passed since the Great Exile. The human colony ships had returned to Earth's solar system like wounded birds coming home to nest. But what they found waiting for them was not the same humanity that had left. Chancellor Emma Stone stood at the observation window of the space station New Horizon, watching Jupiter's red storm swirl in the distance. The massive planet had become the heart of humanity's greatest secret project. Hidden in the gas giant's shadow, thousands of scientists worked day and night on technologies that would have amazed even the council races. The new engines are ready for testing, said Dr. Amy Watson, walking up behind Emma with a datapad in her hands. Amy was older now, her hair showing streaks of gray, but her eyes still held the same curiosity they had when she was a young officer on Jake Morrison's ship. All those years ago, Emma turned from the window. At 60 years old, she had become the leader humanity needed during their darkest time. When the exile began, people were angry and scared. Some wanted to fight. Others wanted to hide. Emma had convinced them to do something else entirely, to become better than they had ever been before. How much better than Council technology? Emma asked. Amy smiled, and it was not a nice smile. Our new quantum tunnel drive can cross distances in minutes that would take their fastest ships weeks to travel. We don't just move through space anymore, Chancellor. We fold it. In the research labs deeper inside the station, Dr. Joe Martinez was working on something even more incredible. Joe had been studying the strange energy readings that human explorers had been finding at the edge of known space. The patterns were too organized to be natural, too complex to be from any species the Council knew about. Look at this, Joe said to his assistant, Dr. Grace Turner. Grace was young, maybe 30, with the kind of mind that could see connections others missed. These energy signatures are everywhere once you know how to look for them. Someone built machines all across the galaxy and then they just disappeared. Grace studied the readings on her screen. The power levels are incredible. Whatever this technology is, it makes Council science look like children's toys. Joe nodded. And if we can understand it, if we can learn how to use it, he didn't need to finish the sentence. Grace understood. The race that had built these machines, the ones human scientists had started calling the predecessors, had been more advanced than anything in the modern galaxy. If humanity could unlock their secrets, the balance of power would shift forever. Meanwhile, in the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter, General Rick Palmer was overseeing the construction of the Shadow Fleet. The huge shipyards were hidden, inside hollowed-out asteroids invisible to any sensors the Council races possessed. How many ships do we have now? Rick asked Colonel Steve Hughes, who was in charge of the day-to-day construction work. Steve checked his tablet. 230 completed vessels with another 100 in final assembly. But sir, these aren't like the old human ships. They're not like anyone's ships. Rick smiled grimly. That's the point, Colonel. When we left Council space, we took the best ideas from every species with us. Zephyrian stealth technology, Corvin weapon systems, Benthari shield generators, Valdris computer cores. But we didn't just copy them. We made them better. The ships of the Shadow Fleet looked different from anything that had ever sailed between the stars. They were sleek and dark, with hull designs that seemed to bend light around them. Human engineers had learned. From their exile, they had taken the specialized technologies of different alien races and combined them in ways no one had ever tried before. But the most important changes were happening to humanity itself. In secret laboratories on Mars, Dr. Ben Clark was working on Project Evolution. Ben had aged well, his gray hair now completely white, but his mind was sharper than ever. The genetic modifications are complete, Ben told his research team. Faster reflexes, stronger muscles, better eyesight, improved brain function, but most importantly, better adaptability. The next generation of humans will be able to survive in environments that would kill us. The test subjects were volunteers from the military, men and women who were willing to risk everything to make humanity stronger. The results were amazing and a little frightening. Enhanced humans could think faster, move quicker, and survive injuries that would be fatal to normal people. On Earth itself, Intelligence Chief Nina Brooks was building something just as important as ships or weapons, a spy network. Nina had worked in secret for decades, placing human agents throughout Council space. These spies had new identities, plastic surgery to look like aliens, and technology that could fool even Zephyrian mind readers. Report from Agent Frank Lewis, Nina said to President Dan Morgan during one of their weekly meetings. Dan had taken over leadership of Earth after Emma Stone moved to the Outer System projects. He was younger than Emma, maybe 45, with the kind of steady calm that people trusted. What does Frank have to say? Dan asked. Nina opened a secure communication file. The Council is having problems, big problems. The Corvin Empire is fighting civil wars. The Benthari economy is failing because they can't adapt to new markets. The Valdris have stopped making new discoveries. And the Zephyrians are having some kind of mental breakdown. Too much mind reading is driving them crazy. Dan leaned back in his chair. And the Nethys? Still mysterious. But Frank thinks even they're worried about something. There are rumors about ships appearing at the edge of the galaxy. Unknown ships, hostile ships. This was the news that changed everything. For 50 years, humanity had been preparing for the day they would return to Council space. They had built better ships, better weapons, better soldiers. They had unlocked the secrets of ancient technology and enhanced their own bodies and minds. But now, it seemed like the galaxy itself was in danger. Captain Ryan Bell had been exploring beyond the edge of known space when he found the first evidence. Ryan was the son of one of the original Exile survivors, and he had inherited his parents' curiosity about what lay beyond the next star. "You need to see this," Ryan told Chancellor Emma Stone over a secure communication link. His ship, the Voyager's Dream, was 3 months out from the nearest human base. The image that appeared on Emma's screen made her blood run cold. It showed a star system that had been completely destroyed. Not conquered, not damaged. Destroyed. Where planets should have been, there was only dust. Where a star should have been burning, there was only empty darkness. "How many systems like this have you found?" Emma asked. 17 so far, Ryan replied. "And Chancellor, whatever did this is moving toward Council space. Fast." Emma closed the communication link and sat in silence for a long time. Humanity had spent 50 years preparing to return to the galaxy as conquerors. Now it looked like they might need to return as saviors instead. She activated the emergency communication system that connected all human leaders across the solar system. "This is Chancellor Stone. Code Black authorization. All department heads to report to Central. Command immediately. We have a situation." Within hours, the leadership of humanity was gathering in the command center hidden deep beneath the surface of Luna. Emma looked around the table at the faces of the people who had helped build humanity's secret strength. Amy Watson, now head of advanced research. Joe Martinez, who had unlocked predecessor technology. Rick Palmer, commander of the Shadow Fleet. Ben Clark, creator of enhanced humans. Nina Brooks, master of spies. Dan Morgan, leader of Earth. "The galaxy is under attack," Emma said simply. "Something is destroying entire star systems as it moves toward Council space. Our scouts estimate it will reach the outer Council worlds in less than 2 years." The room was quiet for a moment. Then Rick Palmer spoke up. "Do we help them? After what they did to us?" Emma looked at each person around the table. "That's what we need to decide. We have the power to save the galaxy. Now, the question is, do we want to?" Amy Watson was the first to answer. "We're human. Helping people is what we do, even when they don't deserve it." One by one, the others nodded agreement. Even after 50 years of exile, even after being thrown out like garbage, humanity would do what was right. "Then we go back," Emma said. "But we go back on our terms." The attack came without warning on a quiet Tuesday morning in Council space. One moment, the Benthari trade world of Nexus Prime was busy with its usual business of buying and selling goods from across the galaxy. The next moment, the sky turned black with alien ships. Trademaster Quillix was in his office when the first reports came in. The clicking of his mandibles filled the room as he read message after message of destruction. These new ships were unlike anything in Council records. They were alive somehow, made of metal and flesh twisted together in ways that hurt to look at. "Send a distress call to the Council fleet," Quillix ordered his assistant. But even as he spoke, he knew it was probably too late. The Council military had not fought a real war in 300 years. Their ships were old, their tactics older, and their weapons designed for ceremonies rather than combat. High Counselor Vexithara received the distress call on the Council station. Her pale blue face went even paler as she watched the attack through long-range sensors. The enemy ships moved like a swarm of insects, covering entire planets in minutes. Wherever they went, they left nothing behind but empty space. "Contact the Corvan Warfleet," she ordered. "Tell War Leader Korthak we need his ships immediately." But Korthak's response was not what she wanted to hear. "My ships are fighting civil wars on 6 different worlds. I cannot spare even one vessel for Benthari problems." Vexthara tried the Valdris next. Science Director Jal's floating form appeared on the communication screen, surrounded by her usual blue energy bubble. "Our ships are research vessels," Jal said calmly. "They are not. Designed for combat, we cannot help. The Nethys has always said nothing useful." Speaker Nith's shadowy form just stared at Vexithera with too many eyes before the communication cut out. Within 6 hours, Nexus Prime was gone. Not destroyed. Gone. The enemy ships had somehow consumed the entire planet, leaving behind empty space where millions of Benthari had lived and worked. The news spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Panic followed close behind. These invaders, quickly named the Devourers by terrified populations, were unlike any threat the Council had ever faced. They did not want territory or resources. They wanted everything to simply stop existing on Earth. President Dan Morgan watched the reports with a mixture of horror and grim satisfaction. 50 years ago, the Council had thrown humanity out for being too dangerous. Now that same Council was facing extinction, and they had no one to turn to. "Sir," said his aide, a young woman named Beth White, "we're receiving a priority message from the Council station." Dan almost smiled. "Let me guess, they want to talk." The message was from High Counselor Vexithera herself. Her mental voice came through the communication system, tired and desperate. "President Morgan of Earth, I am contacting you to ask for humanitarian assistance. The galaxy faces a threat beyond our ability to handle. Many innocents will die if nothing is done." Dan noticed that she had not apologized for the exile. She had not admitted that the Council was wrong. She was simply asking for help while trying to save face. "Admiral Carter," Dan called to his military advisor. Lisa Carter was older now, in her 80s, but her mind was still sharp as a blade. "What do you think?" Lisa looked at the tactical reports on her screen. "The Council fleets are useless against these Devourers. Their weapons barely scratch the enemy hulls. Their ships are too slow, and their tactics too rigid. They'll be wiped out within months. And if we help them?" Lisa smiled, and it was the smile of a predator. "If we help them, the galaxy will see exactly what humanity has become during our exile." Dan nodded. "Prepare the Third Fleet for departure, but make it clear, this is a humanitarian mission only. We're not rejoining the Council. We're not asking for permission. We're just saving lives because that's what humans do." Fleet Admiral Carl Johnson received his orders 3 hours later. Carl was one of the enhanced humans from Dr. Clark's program, stronger and faster than normal people, with reflexes that could respond to threats before his conscious mind even recognized them. "Take 30 ships," Dan told him. "Show them what we can do, but don't show them everything. We want to make an impression, not reveal all our capabilities." Carl's flagship was the Redemption, a name chosen very carefully. The ship was beautiful and terrifying at the same time, with hull lines that seemed to flow like water, and weapons that hummed with barely contained power. The human fleet dropped out of quantum tunnel space just as the Devourers were beginning their attack on the Benthari homeworld. Carl watched the tactical display and shook his head in disgust. The Council defense fleet was arranged in neat, orderly lines like they were on parade. The Devourers were swarming around them like angry wasps. "All ships," Carl said into his communication system, "commence attack pattern Delta. Show these aliens how humans fight." The human ships moved like nothing the galaxy had ever seen. They flickered in and out of normal space, appearing behind Devourer vessels and unleashing weapons that tore through living metal like paper. Where Council weapons had failed to even damage the enemy hulls, human plasma cannons burned through them in seconds. Commander Lisa Gray, Admiral Carter's daughter, was piloting one of the new fighter craft. Her ship was so small that it barely showed up on sensors, but its weapons could destroy vessels 100 times its size. "This is too easy," she said over the communication channel as she destroyed her 5th Devourer ship. "These things might be tough, but they're not very smart." She was wrong. The Devourers were learning. Every time a human weapon destroyed one of their ships, the others adapted. Their hulls became harder. Their movements became faster. Their own weapons began to target human weak points. But the humans adapted too, and they adapted faster. Within minutes of seeing the enemy change tactics, human ships were changing their own approach. This was what 50 years of exile had taught them. Not just to be strong, but to be flexible. Trademaster Quillix watched the battle from his command bunker on the Benthari homeworld. His people had written off their planet as lost, preparing to evacuate the few million survivors they could save. Now he watched in amazement as human ships danced through space, destroying enemies that had seemed unstoppable. "Who are these humans?" asked his military advisor. "Their ships move like they're alive." Quelix remembered the last time he had seen humans 50 years ago in the council chamber. He remembered Admiral Carter's final words about remembering this day. Now he understood what she had meant. The battle lasted 4 hours. When it was over, the Devourer fleet was completely destroyed. Not one human ship had been lost, and only 3 had taken any damage at all. Carl Johnson opened a communication channel to the Benthari homeworld. "This is Fleet Admiral Johnson of the Terran Commonwealth. The immediate threat to your world has been eliminated. We are standing by to provide medical assistance and evacuation support for any civilians who need it." Trademaster Quelix himself replied, "Admiral Johnson, the Benthari people owe you a debt that can never be repaid. You have saved millions of lives today." "No debt is needed," Carl replied. "Saving lives is what we do." But Quelix heard something else in those words. Pride, strength, and maybe just a little bit of satisfaction at showing the galaxy what humanity had become. The news of humanity's return spread even faster than news of the Devourer attacks had. In one battle, the exiled humans had accomplished what the entire Council military could not. They had not just defeated the Devourers, they had made it look easy. High Counselor Vexithara called another emergency council session. The same 5 chairs in the same circular chamber, but everything had changed. The council members who had once sat in judgment of humanity now looked small and frightened. "We must contact the humans officially," Vexithara said. "We must ask them to help defend the galaxy." War leader Korthak slammed his fist down, but this time it was not in anger. It was in frustration. 50 years ago, we called them dangerous. Now we need their protection. The irony is bitter. Science Director Zhal's voice echoed from her energy bubble. Perhaps we were wrong about the nature of the threat they represented. Perhaps the danger was not to galactic stability, but to our own pride. For the first time in Council history, Speaker Nith of the Nethys spoke clearly. "The humans have returned. They are no longer the species we exiled. They have become something new, something more." The vote was unanimous. The Council would formally request humanity's help in defending the galaxy. But they all knew that this time humanity would be setting the terms. The final battle began at the center of the galaxy, where ancient stars burned brighter than anywhere else in the universe. Here, hidden among the cosmic fires, the Devourers had built their greatest weapon, a massive structure that fed on the energy of dying suns. President Dan Morgan stood on the bridge of the command ship New Earth, watching the tactical display with a mixture of awe and determination. The enemy structure was enormous, bigger than entire solar systems, and it pulsed with dark energy that made space itself seem to bend and twist. "How many ships do we have?" Dan asked Supreme Admiral Jack Turner, who had taken command of all human military forces for this final assault. Jack checked his display. 2,000 of our own vessels plus another 500 ships from species that have joined us. The Benthari sent their entire remaining fleet. Even some of the younger Corvan commanders have broken away from their civil wars to help. Dan nodded. It was strange how war could bring people together. The council races that had spent centuries fighting each other were now working side by side with the humans they had once exiled. Dr. Kevin Young was working frantically at a science station nearby. Kevin had spent the last month studying captured Devourer technology, trying to understand what these creatures really were and what they wanted. "I've got something," Kevin announced, his voice tight with excitement and fear. "The Devourers aren't what we thought they were. They're not invaders from another galaxy. They're refugees." Dan turned to stare at him. "Refugees?" "The quantum signatures match records from the predecessor ruins," Kevin explained. "These creatures are what's left of the ancient race that once ruled this galaxy. Something corrupted them, changed them into these consuming monsters. They're not trying to destroy the galaxy. They're trying to go home. This information changed everything." Dr. Maria Santos, working from her mobile laboratory ship Darwin's Legacy, had been studying the Devourer biology for weeks. Her research had cost her dearly. Exposure to their technology was slowly killing her, but she refused to stop working. "If they're really predecessors," Maria said over the communication link, her voice weak but determined, "then they might respond to the ancient control codes we found in the ruins. We might be able to reason with them instead of just fighting." Them. Supreme Admiral Turner looked skeptical. "These things just consumed 17 star systems. How do we reason with that?" "The same way we reason with a sick person," Dan said quietly. "We find out what's wrong and try to fix it." It was a typically human approach to the problem. Where other species saw only enemies to be destroyed, humans saw patients to be healed. It was this difference in thinking that had made the Council fear them so long ago. The battle fleet moved toward the galactic core in perfect formation. Human ships led the way, their advanced sensors piercing through the cosmic radiation that would have blinded Council technology. Behind them came vessels from a dozen different species, all following human tactical commands. High Counselor Vexithara was aboard one of the Zephyrian ships, her first time in combat in over a century. She watched the human fleet move with fluid, grace through space, and finally understood what her people had really been afraid of all those years ago. "They make it look like a dance," she said to her ship's captain. "War is supposed to be chaos and destruction, but they make it look beautiful." The Devourers met them at the edge of the galactic core. Thousands of the biomechanical ships swarmed out from their central structure, like antibodies responding to an infection. The first clash was massive, filling space with weapons fire and exploding ships. But this time, the battle was different. Dr. Young had installed quantum communicators on the lead human ships, devices that could transmit the ancient predecessor control codes directly into Devourer vessels. "Beginning transmission," Kevin announced. "Ancient greeting protocols, identification codes, everything we've learned from the ruins." For a moment, nothing happened. The battle continued to rage around them. Then, one by one, Devourer ships began to slow their attacks. Some stopped fighting entirely, hanging motionless in space as if confused. "It's working," Maria said from her laboratory ship. "They're remembering what they used to be." But the victory came at a terrible cost. Maria's exposure to Devourer technology finally overwhelmed her human biology. She collapsed at her station, her last act being to transmit all her research data to the other human ships. "The codes are working," she whispered into her communicator, "but only on some of them. The ones that are too far gone. You'll have to stop them the hard way." Admiral Turner coordinated the final assault with the precision of a master conductor, leading an orchestra. Human ships that had been fighting the corrupted Devourers suddenly found allies among the ones that had remembered their true nature. Ancient predecessor vessels turned their weapons on their own corrupted kin, helping humanity cleanse the galaxy of the infection that had consumed their people. The battle for the central structure lasted 18 hours. When it was over, the massive construct was destroyed, its dark energy no longer poisoning the space around the galactic core. Of the thousands of Devourer ships that had attacked, nearly half had been saved from their corruption. The others too far gone to be healed had been destroyed with mercy rather than hatred. In the aftermath, something unprecedented happened. The surviving predecessors, their minds clear for the first time in millennia, knelt before the human fleet in a gesture of gratitude and submission. "We remember now," their leader said, its voice carrying across space through quantum communication. "We remember what we were, and we remember what we became. You did not just save the galaxy from us, you saved us from ourselves." President Morgan stood in the council chamber for the second time in his life. But this time he was not standing on the small platform in the center. This time, he stood where the council members had once sat, looking down at representatives from every species in the galaxy. The 5 ancient races were there, but they no longer held positions of authority. High Counselor Vexthara sat in a simple chair among dozens of others, her pale blue face showing a humility that had never been there before. "The old council is dissolved," Dan announced to the gathered representatives. "In its place, we established the Galactic Commonwealth, where every species has a voice and every world has representation. Trademaster Quillix stood up from his seat. What of leadership? Who will guide this new commonwealth? Dan smiled. Leadership is not something you take. It is something you earn through service to others. Humanity offers to serve as coordinators for the Commonwealth, but only for as long as we serve the good of all species. War leader Korthak, now old and scarred from his people's civil wars, spoke next. And if humanity becomes corrupt, if power changes you as it changed the predecessors, then you remove us, Dan said simply. That is how democracy works. That is how freedom works. No species, not even humanity, should rule forever. Chancellor Kelly Brooks, Nina's daughter who had taken over intelligence operations, stepped forward with a document. The Commonwealth Charter, she announced. Equal rights for all species. Advancement based on merit, not tradition. Exploration and growth encouraged, not feared. And most importantly, no species may be exiled or abandoned, no matter what others fear they might become. The vote was unanimous. Every species, from the mightiest Corvan warriors to the smallest colony worlds, agreed to join the new Commonwealth. Later, Dan stood on the observation deck of the new Earth, looking out at the fleet of ships from dozens of worlds. They were preparing for humanity's next great adventure, exploration beyond the galaxy itself, into the vast unknown of intergalactic space. Captain Ryan Bell, now an old man but still eager for discovery, was preparing his ship Voyager's Dream for the first expedition. Any idea what we might find out there? He asked Dan. Dan smiled. No idea at all. That's what makes it exciting. Behind them, visible through the observation windows, was a memorial that had been built in orbit around Earth. On it were carved the names of everyone who had died during the 50 years of exile. Scientists, soldiers, explorers, and ordinary people who had never lived to see humanity's return. At the base of the memorial were words that had become the motto of the new Commonwealth. They cast us out to die in darkness. We returned to bring them light. Humanity had not just returned from exile. They had returned as something better than they had ever been before. They had become the guardians of galactic civilization, leading billions of beings toward a future where fear would never again triumph over hope. The galaxy was theirs now, not through conquest, but through service. And that made all the difference.